goes without saying that photography has been pretty much non-existent during lockdown. However, today I think I actually might stand a half decent chance of getting a half decent image in the bag. Now if we look straight up, what I'm particularly interested in are these crystal clear cloudless skies that you can see here. They're going to work fantastically well for astrophotography and specifically star trail photography. Now bloody hell, my hair looks terrible. I'm one of the lucky few that has access to a garden space. You can see my garage just here and I'm sat on a hedge right next to it. And specifically what I'm interested in is shooting this direction. Now ignore the mess down at ground level, that is courtesy of some construction going on via my neighbour. That doesn't matter one little bit, it's this bit that I'm interested in. We have got a clear, unobscured view of the northern skies here, and that is going to look absolutely beautiful, filled with stars. So we're about an hour or so away from sunset, so I'm going to head in, kill a little bit of time, and then come back out here with my tripod and see if we can get some star trail images in the bag. So I started to get my astrophotography gear ready with the goal of heading out again once it got sufficiently dark outside. My plan was simple: get the tripod mounted camera as low to the ground as possible to create a clear, distraction-free horizon line looking north, with minimal trees or buildings protruding into the night sky. Once set up, I would then position myself selfie style on the horizon line to create a striking, minimalistic foreground silhouette of myself, which in post-processing I could then blend into my final star trail image. The dark skies were looking fantastic outside and totally free of clouds. I've covered star trails before in a fair amount of detail, which I've linked to at the top, but basically it's a type of long exposure astrophotography technique that allows the movement of the stars across the night sky to be captured, creating powerful, surreal looking images. For tonight's shoot I'm going to be using my D750 and my Samyang 14mm f2.8 lens, and both of these are absolute low light monsters and they're fantastic for astrophotography. Now before I get stuck into explaining the settings, it's important to point out that star trail photography is inherently different to Milky Way photography. With Milky Way photography, the objective is to capture as much light as humanly possible, but that's kind of detrimental to take that approach with star trail photography, because if you pick out too many stars from the night sky, you'll actually end up with a very busy, chaotic image as all of those stars start to chart their journeys across your image. And for this reason I'm going to be shooting at a narrower aperture of f4, so I'm not using the f2.8 on the lens, and also a lower ISO of 1000. Also the added benefit of shooting the lower ISO is it allows the starlight not to be overblown, so therefore I can pick out the inherent colours of the different stars in the night sky. So I'm going to pick up blues, yellows and reds, and because each point of light actually travels through the scene, each individual star actually contributes quite a significant amount of light and colour to the actual overall shot. So colours with star trails become really quite important, and it's only by shooting at that lower ISO that you can actually gain access to actually unlock those colours in your actual shot. And the exposure that I'm going to go for is probably in the region of about 30 seconds, and I'm going to be shooting at 14mm. Now at this time of year, pole star is really high up in the sky, and pole star is approximately where all stars in the northern hemisphere appear to rotate around, and it can be really important for compositions to try and work that into your images. But because it's so high up in the sky, I've got no choice but to shoot ultra wide. Now those of you who are quite astute will probably realise that 30 seconds is no way long enough to get star trail activity. So I'm going to be using the intervalometer built into my D750, and this will allow me to run out a succession of images one after the other automatically over a set period of time essentially. I'm going to leave my camera overnight shooting as long as possible because I want to capture these star trails. I want to capture them for the maximum amount of time that I possibly can. So I'm going to set up my intervalometer to take 800 images, which I don't believe will be achieved by my battery, but I'll be lucky if I get probably 2/3 of that, but we'll see. But basically it's going to run out successive shots 800 times before stopping. Now I've set my interval to 35 seconds, so what that means is it will take an exposure of 30 seconds, wait 5 seconds, and then take another exposure of 30 seconds. And it's really important to have that little space between each of your exposures because it allows the camera to write the image to the memory card, and also allows the sensor to cool down slightly before moving on to the next image. Now you don't want to make that gap too big because you'll start to get significant gaps in your actual star trails, but likewise you don't want to make that gap too small either because the camera sequencing will start to get messy and it will cause absolute chaos with your process of taking those images. Now when you take these kind of images, when you leave your camera alone all night, condensation can be a massive problem, and it will form on the front of your glass on your lens. Now the best way to combat this is you can get little lens heating straps, and that's precisely what I've got. So I'm going to wrap that around the front of my lens, and it's powered by a little USB bank, and essentially I will leave that going all night, and it just applies an ever so slight amount of heating to the actual lens, and that's just enough to stop the condensation forming there and clouding my images. It's an absolute necessity if you're shooting any kind of star trail sequence for any length of time. Star trails can look good if you just run them for an hour or two, but really they look at their absolutely most stunning when you can get those long exposures of 3, 4, 5 or even 6 hours. That is what I'm hoping for tonight. So fingers crossed the weather plays ball, but we'll just have to see. So I'm going to set up the camera, leave it alone, head to bed, and then we'll check out how it succeeds in the morning. Shit. It seems at 10 to 1 in the morning, cloud cover rolled in and totally ruined the night. So I didn't really get the image that I wanted. I did manage to capture a small degree of star trailing, but it wasn't all that impressive and certainly didn't match the kind of image that I had in my head. So that's a bit disappointing. Really, clouds are the number one enemy of taking star trail images, and the reason for that is pretty straightforward. The clouds will partially obscure bits of the night sky, which means that the stars in that obscured area, their journeys and their trails will be disjointed because you're no longer capturing the movement of those stars. So you'll create disjointed trails all across your image, which fundamentally breaks those journeys that you're trying to achieve over long periods of time and can create quite ugly looking star trail images. So the number one thing that you've got to look for when you're trying to take star trail images is clear skies, and I mean really you've got to look for 0% cloud cover, because even just one cloud blowing in through the middle of the night has the potential to totally and utterly ruin the image. Now I'm fortunate enough that the weather forecast tonight is forecasting more clear skies, so I've got a second chance to try and get the shot in the bag. So I'm going to head back out to the same hedge and see if it's second time lucky. absolutely thrilled how that image has turned out, and it really has surpassed my expectations. I think it was very much a case of second time lucky here. In the end, the sequence of images lasted for 410 shots over about 4 hours, with the battery finally dying at about 2:30 in the morning. I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't get longer out that battery, but it was a really cold and frosty night, so that will always kill your battery to some extent. A quick and key tip here is if you're taking similar images with a silhouette of yourself in the foreground, make sure that you take that frame with you positioned right in the middle of the composition, because with these super wide angle lenses, if you position yourself out to either side, you're going to look like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So when I took this image, I stood bang center in the middle, and then in post-processing I've simply shifted myself a bit over to the right hand side. I'm not going to go into the post-processing of this image in any great detail, because frankly it would double the duration of this video, and I've kind of already covered it on a past video vlog, which I'll just link to the top on now. But basically I did some simple Lightroom edits across all 410 images. A key step in that is removing any satellites, meteors or planes that happen to come into any of your frames, because that's going to create really ugly looking lines that kind of run across your image and really look quite jarring in and amongst your circular star trails. So that's a very key step if you want to take your star trail images to the next level. Very time consuming though. It's worth keeping that in mind. Once I'd done all those edits across all 410 images, I then pulled the images into a free bit of software called StarStax. I'll just provide a little bit of detail for that down in the description, but it's a phenomenal bit of software specifically designed for star trails. You can do star trails in Photoshop, but StarStax makes your life a lot easier and it makes the process so much quicker. But basically I put the images into that little bit of software and it gave me this final image right at the end there, and I am really pleased with it. It's so much better than I expected, and yeah, considering it's just taken from my garden, I'm super pleased with it. I'm incredibly fortunate that I've got sufficiently dark skies to take astro from my garden, but nonetheless, I think that's a pretty good effort as far as garden photography goes. So that brings to a close today's video. Thank you very much for joining me for this one. If you've got any thoughts on the image itself or on star trail photography, pop them down in the comments below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please click that button below for more videos just like this. Please take care in these strange times, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.